Hello again. To begin, what would you consider to be a disruption in your life? A diagnosis of cancer? The delay of a vacation flight? Inheriting an unexpected fortune? This today is the first of a two-part video blog on the subject of disruptions. The particular disruption I'd like to start with began in 1493 and continues to threaten the United States and those who have been colonized throughout the world ever since. Certain events occur which disrupt the status quo in important ways that either seem to help, harm, maintain the status quo, or provide opportunity for growth and change. This is to say, disruptions are not always negative. Disruptive people, ideas, or disruptive events may, surprisingly, bring about a positive human organization systems change. Disruptions may cause us to stop, consider how we're living, explore new visions, innovations, and ways to be in the world. The advent of electric cars and the COVID-19 vaccines are currently disruptive technologies. Now, both promise to benefit the world. Electric cars to help reduce global warming, and the COVID-19 vaccines to prevent the disease and the loss of life across and around the world. Perhaps the greatest disruptions are the ones which cause us to think differently of ourselves, our neighbors, and how we can live our lives. An example of such a disruption is a change in the way power sharing and decision-making are conducted. This may include laws of property ownership that are restructured within an organization, a family, or a nation to include all stakeholders at the decision-making table. Our beliefs may disrupt the way we think and behave. Religions and their belief systems develop rules and roles which become fixed at one point in time, only though to be disrupted at a future time by a new belief system. Christianity and other global faiths have known their share of disruptive eras and events. Many in the Christian world would argue that the early 16th century Reformation of the Church was a disruptive yet positive change. Moving from a priest-pope hierarchy model, the Reformers disrupted the status quo. Supported by the new technology of the printing press, they were able to place the insights of the biblical messages into the hands of the laity, who learned how to read. This was not the first major disruption for the church, however. Centuries before the Reformation, the model of the earliest church also became disrupted. Initially, the church met discreetly in members' homes, quietly learning and practicing their faith. A few centuries later, however, this simple structure of the church was radically disrupted when the Roman Emperor Constantine elevated Christianity as his favored religion. This disruption placed Christianity as the state religion of the Roman world. The stage was then set for the Roman Catholic Church to become the most prominent, powerful world religion. Over time, the Pope became head of the sacred world and very influential in the secular world leadership. Constantine's disruptive act shifted the practice of the Christian faith from quiet house church communities to a world religion with cathedrals, priests, and bishops, led by the head bishop of Rome, the Pope, who directed the church in what to believe and how to behave. Constantine's disruptive act of elevating the Church of Jesus Christ to the state's religion led to the integration of the state with the church, the secular with the sacred. This blending of sacred and secular authority had a profoundly powerful effect later in the 15th century discovery, exploration, and colonization phase of previously unknown lands and their indigenous people. Called the Doctrine of Discovery, Pope Alexander VI in 1493 decreed that any non-Christian lands discovered by Spain and Portugal could be legally seized, colonized, and exploited by Christian explorers, all under the authority of the Pope. He claimed his right as the fulfillment of Jesus the Christ, who was said to have directed his disciples to go into the world after he left and make disciples of all nations and peoples. This papal doctrine of discovery gave license to white European explorers to capture, to kill, to enslave those in any lands they discovered who were unlike themselves in their faith. In other words, non-Christians. Further, it encouraged them to seize and inhabit those lands, their riches, and their resources. All this was authorized and sanctioned by the sacred and secular head of the Church, the Pope. The Pope's doctrine laid out clear expectations of the Church upon the explorers. They were emissaries of the Church with a mission that would completely disrupt the lives and belief systems of the indigenous people they took over and left with no rights. Through legal precedent which was passed down from the colonized world, this doctrine became the law in this country. The doctrine continues to be perpetuated in the United States to justify the seizure of lands held by indigenous people and slavery also. Those in the church thought this theocratic bastardization of Jesus' message had been cleansed from this country, however, long ago by the Revolutionary War, the Civil War, and multiple Supreme Court decisions having to do with land ownership, and even civil rights legislation. However, none of these disruptive events were sufficient to overcome the influence of the doctrine of discovery up to and including recent events in this country. This is the end of part 1.